Good morning, everyone. It's a great pleasure to be here today in Bucharest. I think that this is my fifth time in Bucharest. It's always really pleasure to be here. Thank you to the M100 cities Romanian program for this kind of invitation. And I will evoke for 30 minutes my research work on this topic, proximity, the revolution of proximity, and 15 minutes for exchanging by the Q&A, etc. So, with my team at Sorbonne University in Paris, we have developed this proposal, the 50-minute city, as a way for changing radically our lifestyles. In the previous film, it was very clear that if we wanted to fight with efficacy in face with climate change, we need essentially to change radically our lifestyle. The 15-minute city is one of the ways for offering this change, for shifting our mindset. This is an opportunity for local governances, for changing the shape of city from the traditional modern urbanism based on zonification in long distances, and to offer a more distributed, decentralized city for regenerating our neighborhood, for developing new local businesses, for developing more local employment, for having more social interactions, for developing more intergenerational activities, for reconquering public spaces for people, and for breaking out with almost 1 century of a car-centric urbanism. In reality, when I wanted to explain our research work, the first point to keep in mind is that the number of minutes in the 15-minute city expression is the less important point. I proposed in 2016, a few months after the COP21 in Paris, the big crucial event for humanity, when the nations have signed the Paris Agreement. I said that if we wanted to fight against global warming, if we wanted to reduce our CO2 emissions, the key is in fact cities, given that cities are the most relevant contributor of CO2 emissions. Cities are the place with the majority, more than 70% of energy consumption. And cities are the place where the majority of people live today. 75% in Europe, 84% in South America. I was born in Colombia, and I remember me that when I left Colombia 45 years ago, we had in this country 30% of urban dwellers, 70% of rural dwellers. 45 years after, we have 80% more, 82% of urban dwellers, less than 20% of rural, in just 45 years. This is today the essential question. If we wanted to reduce our CO2 emissions for fighting against climate change, this is no more a question of the technical decision. This is no more a question of technical measure. This is not more a question of the captation, sequestration of CO2. This is a really significant point today for deciding to change radically our lifestyle in cities. Our lifestyle is related to our habits in city for living, for working, for moving, our different actions in cities, given that the majority of our lifestyle is permanence, significant contributor on CO2 emissions. I said that in the 15-minute city, the less important point is the number of minutes. Why? This concept, in fact, is proposed for reducing our CO2 emissions, but not only. It is to transform our idea essentially of sustainability. Sustainability is not only an ecological commitment. Ecological commitment in the way for reducing our CO2 emissions, for having more renewable energies, for preserving our biodiversity. Of course, we need this radical commitment for that. But sustainability is more than ecology. Sustainability is at the same time to transform our economy. Our economy is essentially, after the Second War, in the second part of the 20th century, based on this globalization and zonification. We have developed an economy based essentially in long distances. At the beginning of the modern urbanism, we have developed, in reality, our cities shaped by the zonification for creating the skylines, corporate business district, places for working, the big building for hosting workers in buildings with just these single functions to work. We have developed the residential areas. We have developed the cultural areas. We have developed the big malls for shopping, the administrative areas. In reality, zonification was, at the beginning of the modern urbanism, the motto proposed by the Athens Charter, the Le Corbusier zonification idea, and this zonification is totally related to the massification of cars. Mr. Henry Ford has developed, after 1933, this amazing massification of cars. And after the Second War, worldwide, in Europe, in other countries, we had this zonification, the shape of cities with the single functions, the corporate business district, totally intertwined of the massification of cars and the emergence of the infrastructures for cars, motor highways, bridges, etc., etc. And The presence of car, it's at the same time the essential way for joining from a home a job. At the same time, it was a social sign of I exist. I exist because I have a car. I have a big car. I am a man. I am a very important person. The presence of cars was related to the significative male gender city. The presence of car was totally related to the predominance of the male power. We are very important men with a car, and even if I, with my car, I will have 2 hours in a car for a traffic jams, I am a very important person, and I have the music in my car. This is my bubble. In reality, for more than 7 decades, we have used that this lifestyle, zonification, corporate district, long distances, long commute by car, is the normality. The question is the real transformation of our planet related to the impact of global warming. For a long time, we said global warming, we have a lot of images in Asia of in South America, but today global warming is totally present in our daily lives, including in Europe. Yesterday, in Spain, in Valencia, in the south of Valencia, the meteorological phenomenon, the Dana, it was totally crazy. We had just in a few hours the terrific impact of the city of Valencia, even the region of Valencia, totally flooded. These images today are totally awful. 1 month ago, maybe 7 weeks ago, I was invited in Budapest by the mayor of Budapest at the moment of the meteorological phenomenon, Boris. And we have in Poland, in Austria, in Hungary, the region totally flooded by the phenomenon Boris. In my country, in France, but at the same time in Italy and in Spain, we have the Kirk meteorological phenomenon with a lot of impact. In the USA, Milton, Ellen. In fact, we have impermanence today, lot of meteorological phenomenon. But this is the reality of climate change. In Romania, I read that during the last summer in Bucharest, you had the hottest record of temperatures. This is today a daily reality worldwide. The question is, given that the majority of people live in cities, given that we are in permanence the impact of climate change, this is not only a question of temperature or raining. This is a question of how could we live, work in this context. The 50-minute city is in reality an ambitious proposal for transforming our cities with a new ecological, economical, and social development. Ecological because we wanted to create a more livable proximity instead of to have in permanence this giant metronome of cities. Early in the morning, I will go for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, just for working, and vice versa at the end of the day, with a lot of sleep neighborhood. We need to create a new lifestyle, work style, a commute style. The main idea is not to have 15 minutes. The main idea is to have a decentralized city, distributed city, to revigorate our neighborhood for our capability for recreating a new business model in city, for generating more social interactions, for having a more human public space, for reducing the role, the predominant role of cars, to transform our mindset for going from the new modern centaurs, half human, half car, towards 100% humans. Well, capability, this is not only a question for having this proximity for accessing to more services. Well, capability is a question of the urban health. By capability, this is not only for having a proximity for accessing to more services. By capability is a question of urban health. Urban health, given that cars are the epicenter of pollution in our cities. Cars are one of the most significant generators of pollution, but not only CO2 pollution. Cars are a strong generator of the silent killer. The sugar of cities are cars with the fine particles, the invisible fine particles, the 0.5, 1.5, 1 micron. The fine particles are the sugar in the cities because the silent killer is present in permanence. And just by our breath, we have lot of impermanence, fine particles in our body. And this presence to the 2 years, 3 years, 5 years after are the strong generator of lot of different diseases. This is not just a scary history by the proximity of Halloween. This is a scientific reality. A lot of scientists around the world have evoked with the concrete data the impact of fine particles. And we need to be aware of that. A lot of people said with the electrical cars, we will switch from the CO2 pollutions to less pollution. It is true. It is true, of course. We prefer to have electrical car than with diesel car. However, an electrical car is a generator as well of fine particles by the contact between the brake and the road. these actions, when we need to break, is this generator of fine particles. We need today to change radically this kind of situation. Our proposal is really simple, to evoke how could improve the quality of life by the transformation from a zonified city, segmented city, gentrified city, towards a more compact city with a more vibrant neighborhood, for developing more social mixity, for developing more services. We have proposed a model with 6 essential elements, 6 essential functions for mixing in a polycentric city, to live in the good conditions, no more overcrowded buildings with the bad architectural conditions. To live in the good condition is to have the natural enlightenment, natural ventilation, green areas, and a human place by a square meter. But it is not enough. To have a roof and 4 walls is not equal to live in a city. For living in a city, we need to have more than a house. We need to have local shops, local commerce in proximity, with the low carbon accessibility of food or by bike. Local commerce, local shops is at the same time local employment, short circuits, raw materials. This is the possibility for having more human contacts. This is a possibility for having more pedestrianized areas with a more local vibrant economy. This is the second point. The third point is to access to the medical services, access to the care, the well-being, medical services, mental, physical, to different well-being, fitness, sport, activities, indoor, outdoor. This is the third point. The fourth point, to access to the culture, education, culture, entertainment, cinema, theater, cultural activities, exhibitions, indoor or outdoor. This is the fourth point. The fifth point, to change the metronome work style for offering a more decentralized work. A more decentralized work for changing the business model of the traditional work. After COVID-19, it will become more difficult to access with the hybrid presence for mixing the physical presence 2 or 3 days and the distance activities for example 2 days. This is not in reality to foster people to work alone at home. This is to transform for their work style, for proposing more decentralized places, the corporate decentralized working, in order to mix the physical presence and the distance presence. And the sixth point, to enjoy in the public spaces, to have public spaces for people, for women, for children, for fragile people, for having activities in public spaces, for more walkability, more bikeability. This is the circle, the social urban circularity. 6 essential functions: to live, to supply, to care, to education, to work, to enjoy. We have allowed one color by function. And we have a very, very simple exercise in each one of cities around the world where we have this chance for working with local mayors. To take a map, a digital map, to identify for each one of these colors today where we could access to these services. The response is the same around the world. At the end of this exercise, we have 6 colors totally separated. The places for working, the places for the commercial activities, the places for cultural activities, etc. Our transition pathway is, in fact, to mix this color every time, everywhere. Jane Jacobs, our source of inspirations, my book is dedicated, my latest book is dedicated to Jane Jacobs. Jane Jacobs coined this concept, the livable city. Jane Jacobs said, a city is alive when we have every time, everywhere, a choice for satisfying our essential needs without having a car dependency. From Jane Jacobs in 80s until today, 2024, this is the same guideline. To have every time, everywhere in a city, a possibility for satisfying our essential needs without having a car dependency. Jane Jacobs said, this is a livable city. I said, we need to transform the shape of the city for switching from the traditional modern city built at the beginning of the last century of the 20th century towards a city of the 21st century, a polycentric city. A polycentric city because we need to create a lot of different decentralized centers interconnected. The question is not to live isolated in a place. A lot of people said the 50-minute city is to have the traditional village present at the beginning of the 20th century. No, this is not the question. The question is to transform radically our lifestyle, work style, for having in all city the access to these 6 essential services with the strong functional mixity, social mixity, in an interconnected city. In an interconnected city by low carbon mobilities, food, by capability, public transportation. The question, in fact, is our challenge to go from the constrained mobility to chosen mobility. 72% of our daily mobility in our cities today is totally constrained. I don't have a choice. We wanted to offer a choice for people. If I have close to my home green areas, sport activities, cinemas, theaters, local shops, local commerce, educational activities, my preference will be for going to this kind of services. And of course, we have a totally choice for going in other places of my city. This is totally necessary in an interconnected city. Not as well to have a Louvre museum every 15 minutes. This is not to have a cancer hospital every 15 minutes. We have 3 kinds of proximity. The daily proximity for having in a shorter distance the access to the daily essential services. And of course, we have a second kind of proximity, the intermediate places, for having a museum, for having a university, for having a specialized medical service. And we have a third kind of services, the centralized services, the political service of the town hall, for example, the central town hall. This is important to understand. that our concept of 15-minute city is not constrained to a barrier of the number 15. This is just an idea for saying we need to reconquer more useful time. We need to change radically our lifestyle for offering more livability, for regenerating our neighborhood, for having more greener and thrive neighborhood, for regenerating our local economy. The Nobel Prize Mohamed Yunus, my friend, wrote in 2010 an amazing book, and I advise you to read this book, A World of Triple Zero: Zero Carbon, Zero Poverty, Zero Exclusion. This was a very significant source of inspiration. Zero carbon to reduce by a low carbon mobility. Zero poverty to regenerate our local economy for offering more local employment, local resources, instead of to continue these external globalizations. And zero exclusion to develop more vibrant neighborhood for having more socialization, more social interactions in our neighborhood. Recently, we have started a cooperation with another Nobel Prize, Professor Paul Krugman. Paul Krugman received the Nobel Prize in 2008, the Economy Nobel Prize, by his concept, the new economical geography, most known as the nearshoring. Instead of to continue our economy with the offshoring, in this way for humanizing our local activities, Krugman said, we need to develop this new economical geography for rebalancing our territories with the more local employment, local added value, to reincorporating technology in our territories. The concept of nearshoring. And for 2 years, we have started a scientific work with the Regional Science Association, Peter Nierskam, Karima Kortid, and we have wrote a scientific paper recently with Paul Krugman for crossing these two concepts, a happy polycentric proximity and the new economical geography. And I said to Paul Krugman, to my colleagues of the regional science associations, in the 21st century, in face to climate change, in face to the economical impact of climate change, when we have the road totally out of order by the meteorological events, when we have the regions totally flooded, when we have the heat waves and the economical impacts. This is a more important reason for preserving this proximity. If my roads are totally out of order by the meteorological impact, to have services in proximity is the key for preserving this capability known as resilience. And I said proximity is today our best resilience. I proposed this term, the proxilience, proximity as the best resilience. And based on the work of Paul Krugman, the new economical geography, I consider that we have, with the 15-minute city, with the 30 minutes territory for the medium and low density areas, with the X minute city or territory, with the happy polycentric proximity, a great opportunity for developing this new economical geography of a sustainable proximity. This is the deep sense of this concept. A new economical geography, because in face of the impact of climate change, we need to have a more close economy. We need to regenerate more local activities, employment, and raw materials to be resilient. In this way, proximity is a resilience. But for being resilient, we need to have this economy. We need to have social interactions, public space. We need to preserve as well greener areas. We need to preserve more walkability, bikeability for being totally in a livability in face with this kind of disagreement. The new economical geography of sustainable proximity is the best way based on the 50-minute city, the 30-minute territory, the X-minute city or territory. Just for finishing, today, this concept has become very popular worldwide. In my book, I explain in the third chapter with the concrete examples, 2 or 3 cities, regardless of size and density in the 5 continents. Why? This concept is not a doxa. This is not a checklist. This is not a constraint list of items for having a score. This is the framework for shaping differently our city, for offering a possibility for customizing this concept in the particular conditions. Of course, Paris is different of Milan, of Bogota, of Buenos Aires, of Busan, of Quezon in Philippines, of Pleszova, rurality 15,000 inhabitants in Poland. But in these all different places, they have implemented this concept because this is a flexible concept based on this framework, 6 essential functions, the new indicators of the quality of life, for preserving my personal and familial well-being, for preserving my social well-being with my neighbor and work colleagues, and for preserving my ecological well-being, my CO2 emissions, my low-carbon daily activities, and my otherness with other people that live in my city. We have today around the world the 50-minute city, the 10-minute city, the city of Utrecht in Netherlands, the city more bikeable in Europe, 300,000 bikes per day. They have today a lot of bike jams. The 10-minute city in Utrecht is a way for reducing the long commute by bike for offering more decentralized services. This is a good example of this is not a question only of the traffic jams. Maybe it will be a question of bike jams because the question is not to cross the city, is to identify this proximity, the 10-minute city in Utrecht, the 5-minute city in Copenhagen, the 20-minute neighborhood in Melbourne in Australia, the 20-minute territory in Scotland for the whole nation, Scotland in UK, the complete neighborhood in Montreal, the vital macro centro in Buenos Aires. We have a lot of different nicknames, and this is a good thing. The important point today with the X-minute city, with the X-minute territory, is to foster this new lifestyle, this new work style, to change radically. And for that, we need to implement not only the partial measures, we need to change our local urban plan, our local territorial plan. This is a commitment for the middle term and for the long term. In Paris, Anne Hidalgo, my mayor, has embraced this concept in 2019, not only for having more walkability or more bikeability, even if Paris is the champion in the world of bikeability and walkability, but to offer a new local urban plan. The real transformation in Paris is, it was one Anne Hidalgo proposed to the Paris City Council in May 2023 to vote the new bioclimate Parisian urban plan. This vote is the historical vote because the last time when we have voted in Paris a local urban plan was in 2000. 23 years after, we have voted a new bioclimate Paris urban plan available for the at least next 10, 15 years. And this local urban plan is this concept: hyper-proximity, nature as common good, local services, local shops, with the concrete measures for transforming that, cultural activities, to open the schoolyards during the weekend, to ban cars of the street in front of the schools, to offer more sport activities, to pedestrianize places for having more local commerce activities, etc., etc., etc. And my advice for local mayors is, of course, we need more capability, we need more by capability, but this is not enough. We need, in reality, to propose a new strategic plan in the short term, mid-term, and long term for having this continuity and for transforming not only our mobility, for transforming for all our mindset, to switch towards the mindset of the 21st century. We need to change the mindset at 3 levels. The local governance, mayors, for embracing this idea as the urbanism of the 21st century. The second way, the stakeholders, the private sector must change the business model in cities for embracing a new business model different of the business model of the 20th century, single functions and zonification. The new business model of the 21st century is the massive mixity and more peaceful life. And the third level, our mindset as citizens. We need to embrace another lifestyle, personally, each one of us. For that, we need lot of pedagogical activities, education, in particular for the young generation, for understanding that in this unsustainable world, with the unsustainable cities, with the unsustainable lives, this is really uncertain if our world will continue to exist at the middle of this century. If we wanted to have a chance for continuing to exist as civilization, we need to change. And for that, this is now, this is here, and this is together for generating our best effort in order to change this lifestyle and work style. This is the sense of the 15-minute city, and this is our ambition, and maybe this is one of the reasons of this popularity, to offer this common global narrative available for local governance, for private sector stakeholders, and as well for citizens, with the pedagogical actions using science, data, geodata analysis, and at the same time, the concrete pedagogical tools for empowering cities and dwellers in order to transform our collective mindset. Thank you so much.